Hi everyone and welcome to Property Insight. Today we're going to discuss the impact of the Renters' Rights Bill on the end to minimum fixed term tenancies and an end to assured short hold tenancies altogether. And with me today is Steve Mitchell, my name's Neil Harding.
And I'm Mark Ashworth. So the end of fixed term tenancies, what does that actually mean? It means that we can no longer just dictate that someone's going to stay for 6 months or 12 months. So that's going, it's gone, or it will be gone.
Will be going, gone.
Summer 2025, assuming the bill becomes law.
Yeah. And I think for me, this is the most important part of the new bill that's going to have the most impact, both on renters and on property owners. So currently, you can put in a fixed term element to the contract, as Mark, you suggested 6 months or 12 months. And what that means is that from a renter's perspective, you know that you've got a period of time in that property that you can occupy, and it's contractualized, and there's not really much anyone can do about that. There are notice periods towards the end of that fixed term, and after that fixed term, it then goes on to what's called a periodic status, which means that it goes on month by month by month, and all the tenant needs to do is provide 1 month's notice. Us as landlords or property owners, we need to provide 2 months notice currently. When you're removing that, what that does is, on the renter's side, provides a lot more flexibility. So they will then, in the new world, have to give 2 months notice. So they could move in on January the 1st, January the 2nd give notice, and then leave on February the 28th. So that provides maximum flexibility to the renter. From the property owner's perspective, that provides a lot of variability, I would call it, and some risk. So the cost, if you're with a letting agent, of trying to find that tenant could be as much as at least 1 month's rent, or most probably 50% of 1 month's rent. So if you're continually doing that, the profitability and the return that one would get on that investment is at risk. Let's put it like that. With regards to looking at letting agents' perspective, well, that could be great, because we're going to be finding lots more tenants, or we're going to be charging our fees, and that could be a little bit of a boon for us. But then you sort of put a level of common sense above it, and you would say, well, if someone has spent time and effort finding a property, and they have gone into that property, if it is of good quality, and if it suits their need, and the location is great, and it's next to good schools and things like that, why would they want to move? So the only reason they'd probably want to move is either if they have a life-changing situation, which as good property owners, we would probably try and accommodate as much as we possibly could anyway. Or if the quality is not good, then that's a reason for us as property investors to understand the reason for that move and reinvest or make our property a lot better. So there are some pros and cons, I think, on either side. But what it does in the main, in my humble opinion, is take away that surety of someone being in your property, and as a property owner, getting a rental income for a set period of time. Because the other impact that this could have is on the short-term rental market, and then that's going to put prices all over the place and potentially upset another area of the property industry.
I think it is increased competition for the service accommodation strategy. Steve, you and I were talking earlier about a scenario where, let's say you've got a summer job on the coast somewhere, and for 2 months you want to rent some accommodation. Maybe you're a student or something, and you've got 2 months worth of work. Previously, you would have been only really looking at hotel rates or Airbnbs, some sort of service accommodation unit, and maybe the rate would have been £100 a night, let's just say. Whereas now, actually, why would you do that? It doesn't make that much sense. If it's mid-July to mid-September, then you would get a nice bedsit or something for £600 a month.
Yeah.
And rent that, and then day one, give notice.
Yeah, I mean, we see this in Cambridge all the time, whereby you have researchers that are coming over to the university from Europe for 3 months. They only want to take the room in our instance, for 3 months. Whereas currently our fixed minimum term is 6 months. We say, look, unfortunately, the landlord is looking for a 6-month minimum term. We would respectfully suggest you go and look at Airbnb and so on and so forth. Now, if they go and look at Airbnb, you're looking at around about 140 quid a night. Whereas in our rooms, you're looking at around about 25 to 30 pound a night. So there's a massive price drop for that short-term requirement of comparing an Airbnb with a room that we might have. So there could be a whole bunch of price movement in the short-term market, because as more and more people might look at single lets or HMO rooms that would have gone into Airbnbs, they're no longer getting the occupancies that they require. So what's going to happen in that situation? Well, they're going to naturally start to lower their rents. Now, if you own the property, that's maybe not so bad, provided that you don't fall below your minimums in terms of your mortgage and so on and so forth. But if it's on some form of rented or guaranteed contract, well, you're responsible for all the bills and the guaranteed payment to the landlord, and therefore you're reliant on having those higher rates. And at some point, that void, because no one's going into service accommodation now, they're all going into single lets because you can get them for 2 months because there's no removal of the fixed term period, or go into HMO rooms because there's the removal of the fixed term period, means that the service accommodation price is going to drop massively. Or the opposite is going to happen, whereby we're able to charge a lot more for our single lets and our rooms and bring it more up to where the service accommodation is. And nature abhors a vacuum. There's going to be some sort of rebalancing of the market price in terms of supply and demand, but I don't know which way that's going to flip.
So do you think that realistically people are going to want to rent property for a short period of time? Let's say they want to rent, well, let's say they can't do anything but rent it for the minimum of 2 months if there's that 2 month notice period. There's going to be things like setting up council tax, setting up energy bills, setting up broadband, because typically single let properties and flats and things like that don't tend to come with those facilities already prepaid. Yep. So do you think people would be prepared to jump through those hoops in order to just rent a property for 2 months? Or do you think what we're talking about is, not really, that could happen, but not likely?
I think it's the latter. I think it could happen, and I think it's probably a new source of competition for the service accommodation sector that might have an impact on prices. But I can't see it really, sort of off the top of my head, becoming more than 5% or something of tenancy agreements.
I don't know, but to go back to your point about the whole process of moving into a single let, registering for council tax, all that, with regard to utilities, the ability to switch is a lot more simple now than what it was 3-5 years ago. And who's to say that if a tenant goes in for 2 months and they then move out, well, what happens if they don't pay? Now, it's incumbent upon the utility suppliers to go and chase those individuals in order to reclaim their debt. But whereas there's going to be a register for landlords, and in every property will have to go on this register, I don't believe there's going to be a register for tenants. So you won't know where the tenant history has been. They've moved from Neil's house to Mark's house, and now they're coming to my house. So I've got no way of knowing initially when I'm doing the interview of, have they got debts? Have they run from previous properties? And the only way I'm going to know that is when I go through referencing, if I reference, because a lot of landlords still don't reference. But when I go through referencing, I'm going to see that they've got bad debt. But I've already spent money on that referencing, only to find out that they're potentially not good applicants. So I think that for me, this is the biggest change that's going to have the most impact on the proposed change of legislation as and when it comes through.
What do you think the impact is on the student HMO population?
Yes, so I remember going to a very, very excellent networking event where we had some student landlords, and they were very nervous, let's put it like that, because, and rightly so at the time, because If you're in the student market, as we are in Cambridge here, there would be the opportunity for a group of students or a single student to take out a tenancy on the 1st of October and then by the end of November leave. Now, how do you find another group of students or a single student to fill that void? And there was a lot of concern, let's say, that student landlords would be facing higher voids and therefore lower profitability, lower return on investment. Subsequent to that, to give the, as it was Conservative government, a little bit of credit, and it makes me feel all shaky to give Conservative government a little bit of credit, they have proposed a change whereby student tenancies will be exempt from that, and that there will be an element of fixed period in that contract to cover that term time. But term times are only normally 9 months. So what happens between those off-term times or in that transition from year 1 to year 2, over the summer months, students typically go home. So are they going to have to pay a rental or a reduced rate rental for that period? And that's still, I think, a little bit up in the air.
Or do you think maybe there'll be the equivalent of 12 months rent being paid on what are clearly HMOs being used for students that are down the road from the campus, 12 months rent spread across 9? Is that what's...
Yeah, but then if you're doing that, if you haven't seen our previous videos around pricing and the setting of rentals, you will have to make sure that whatever the price that you are setting that at is actually what you enact. There's none of this sort of bidding and all that type of stuff that we talked about before.
Which is also against the regulations of the bill.
Exactly. So yeah, a lot of changing times, and we need to be mindful of how this is going to impact our businesses as landlords. We need to be mindful as letting agents how that's going to impact our clients. But I do think that with regards to the removal of the fixed term tenancies, the positive thing from that is if you've got a good property and you've got great tenants, I don't think it'll have much of an impact. But if you've got poor properties or if your tenants are in unstable circumstances, I think that's where it could potentially unravel.
Which is therefore probably a good thing, I think. It sounds like a good thing, right? It's going to be better for tenants. It's going to therefore, I'm a firm believer that it is better for tenants. Actually, in the long run, it's better for landlords that are doing it properly.
Yeah.
So,
and maybe this is part of an effort to remove poor landlords, let's put it like that, from the marketplace, because people just won't want to go there. The opposite to that is, unfortunately, we have a shortage of rental properties. So where are they going to go? And that's part of the government's plan to build, 1.5 million houses over the term of the Parliament, which I think is a bit ambitious, but that's just my personal opinion.
So I think that wraps up this video. Thanks very much again for watching. Please like, comment below, and of course subscribe to the channel. And we very much look forward to seeing you on the next video.